Hello, everybody. It is Thursday in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. My name is Adam Bittner, assistant sports editor for multimedia at the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette, joined by international Jason Mackey, who is in Dublin, Ireland, on the Emerald Isle across the pond. I'm still here in the comforts of home in Pittsburgh, but Jason, you made the long journey, so I'm excited to hear what's going on in Ireland, what the buzz is like. We're going to do that in the second segment. In the first segment, we're going to talk about Ben Roethlisberger's somewhat bombshell comments that are making the rounds this week about Mike Tomlin possibly getting outcoached by Kevin O'Connell and the Vikings in this big, prominent international game. Before we get to all of that, we want to thank our sponsors for this episode of the podcast. This show is brought to you by FanDuel and also Edgar Snyder. When you've been hurt on the job, who decides when you're better? Who decides when your treatment is over? Who decides when your benefits are over? The answer might surprise you. Insurance companies, doctors do. How does that make you feel? If the answer is not great, call Edgar Snyder and Associates today at 1-800-94-EDGAR. They'll fight for the work comp rights you deserve. And remember, there's never a fee unless they get money for you. Jason, I'm going to read the comments from Ben Roethlisberger to you of what he said about this game. This is via Steelers Depot. He said on his podcast this week, if I say that I think we're going to get out coached, is that controversial? I'll say this. I think Brian Flores is a very good defensive coordinator. I think Kevin O'Connell is an exceptional offensive mind. They're going to find ways to try to exploit our defense and their defense, which is what everyone does. I get it. I just think that there's a chance that it could. I don't know if it's controversial for some Steelers fans to say they think Mike Tomlin might get out coached, but it definitely raised my eyebrows to see him say that in particular and use that word out coached. Because that's a very loaded term in a lot of these hot take, shows, this discourse. That's not usually something you hear someone say about their former coach. So I'm curious what your thoughts are about Ben Roethlisberger saying that about Mike Tomlin, his staff going against Kevin O'Connell and Brian Flores this week.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a bunch of smoke, Adam. I don't want to call Ben Roethlisberger a hot take artist. He doesn't need to deliver hot takes. How does he know? How does he know? Like, he hasn't spent any time around the Minnesota Vikings, obviously. He doesn't spend a ton of time around the Steelers. He's kind of, guessing how that's going to play out. Have the Steelers been out-coached so far this season? I don't know if they have. They've been out-executed. Maybe they weren't prepared to play. But in terms of scheme, like, is their scheme that lousy? Or are players just underperforming? It's not Mike Tomlin's job to get Broderick Jones to execute. I understand there's a whole larger conversation there, like, should you taken a guy? Should you have not taken the guy? How detrimental are those things? You're not able to run the ball. Are you committing enough to it? I don't know. I mean, look, Ben can say whatever he wants. It's the beauty of the country that we live in and that I'll get back to eventually. And so I respect that. I don't see the Steelers' issue right now being like an out-coached kind of thing. And I'm being careful saying that because, I don't think Mike Tomlin, has done a terribly great job lately, and I'm not saying that he has. I just don't think it's like a matter of matching wits, which is what I think Ben was getting at.
Well, if you read between the lines a little bit, because he did go in particular on the offensive line component of that, and it seems like he did have a level of focus on that position group and what's not working there. He did bring up Broderick Jones individually, and I guess there's no real evidence-based reason to dispute that piece of it, that this offensive line is not where it should be with what they've invested, the time on the calendar. Totally. You got Broderick Jones in year 3, Troy Fautano in year 2. Does he maybe have some idea of what he's at least seeing in these games? What he knows he should be seeing from an offensive line, and possibly what he's not. I'm going to pull up the Broderick Jones comment while you're answering that. But I guess that if you listen to the thing in totality, he is focusing. He said there needs to be some accountability. That was the quote from Ben.
Hey, absolutely.
So how much? So if he's seeing that this offensive line is deficient in certain ways, how are you viewing that?
Yeah, I mean, a lack of accountability, I agree with. A lack of accountability to me is different than getting out-coached. Getting out-coached to me is the Minnesota Vikings coming up with a scheme that the Steelers can't figure out. And maybe I'm just wrong in how I'm interpreting that. I'm not sure. But as far as a lack of accountability, I would agree with that. Some questionable decision-making, I would agree with that. Like punting 4th and 1, I don't like that. Not allowing Chris Boswell last week to attempt a 60-yard field goal, I don't like that. So I get all that. And you can say like team building and how many reps they're allocating for Jalen Warren, all this stuff that doesn't make a ton of sense. I guess that's out coaching. That's just not the way I took his comments. So I'm interested to see. I did not read specifically what he said about Broderick Jones, so it'll be interesting to hear that. And I want to end my comments, at least on that portion, of saying, like, that's not me signing off on the job Mike Tomlin's doing. I'm not saying I think he's doing a great job. I'm just, I feel like going to get out coached, the way I interpreted it, is like, getting out X's and O'd, if that makes sense.
Yeah. I think I'm picking up what you're putting down, and I think there's a level on which I agree with it because, I think you can even look at. I think I saw a stat today about how the last handful of years, if you look at turnover margin, the Steelers are at the very top of that in the entire league, and they get 5 last week against New England. I mean, is that coaching? Do you have to give credit? And in my 5 questions, and I think I said it in the post-game show on Sunday, that he's making little decisions that do make sense as well. I think the benching of Peyton Wilson, or at least decreasing his role, when so many people love Peyton Wilson over Cole Holcomb. I think there's a lot of Steelers fans that are totally indifferent to Cole Holcomb, who love Peyton Wilson, who want to see Peyton Wilson succeed. Well, that was a difficult decision he made to elevate one over the other, that paid immediate dividends with that forced fumble the other day. And I think that timeout at the end of the game, people give him so much crap for his time management and all that stuff. He set the defense up to make that 4th down stop in New England as well. So does he get credit for that, or does he get only the derision for the things that aren't working and don't work?
Well, I mean, to build on that, Adam, the Steelers are one of the most heavy blitzing teams. I didn't look at the number this week, but if you look at their blitz percentage, they're aggressive. They're doing what you would want people to do. No, they haven't generated enough because they haven't finished those plays. Is that Mike Tomlin's fault? To me, that's the right strategy. You should be aggressive and you should be blitzing a lot. No, if those guys aren't getting home, to me, it's on the players. That's not getting out coached. That's making the right decisions. You're having theoretically the right people in place. I think, to a degree, I think you're deploying them in a way that makes sense. And to a degree, I would criticize some of their deployment. Like on the good side, I agree with you. With the Cole Holcomb over Peyton Wilson, that makes a lot of sense. You're giving Nick Herbig opportunities. He's earned them. He should continue to get them. Y.A. Black has gotten some opportunities. I'd like to see him get more, but I don't understand the usage of Keanu Benton. Why you are sort of sticking with him. But at the same time, we saw a shift a little bit toward Daniel Ekuale in the last game. So there's good and bad. And so I guess I kind of lost my train of thought and where I was going with that. But I feel like basically most of the process is right, or the process isn't bad enough to the point where I'm like, oh, they're going to get out coached. I can make that determination right now. Like I can't go there. It's not a defense of Tomlin. I just can't go that far where Ben seems to be going.
I wanted to ask you about the Kevin O'Connell portion of this because I at least have seen a lot of him on these Netflix shows with Peyton Manning the last couple of years, the quarterback show. Year 1 of the quarterback show when Kirk Cousins was there. Year 2 of the receiver show with Justin Jefferson. I think he is a very impressive coach. And we always talk about, well, if the Steelers fired Mike Tomlin, he would have a job with another 20 teams instantly, and Kevin O'Connell's not on that list to me. I think he's a very good coach. I think Minnesota is lucky to have him. Is Ben maybe just saying that, like, look, this is an exceptional mind. He's one of the best in the sport. Look what he's done with this Vikings team the last handful of years. It hasn't mattered who's throwing. It hasn't mattered a lot of these personnel changes that he's had. He's had a lot of success.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's the root of what Ben is saying, if I had to take a guess. That like last year, you look at Sam Darnold and the year that he's had. Like, I think a lot of people would probably describe him as a scheme quarterback. Was he that against the Steelers? I thought he looked like more. But I think a lot of people are waiting for him to fall on his face and thought he was maybe aided by Kevin O'Connell and strong coaching. I don't know. You look at J.J. McCarthy going down and how they were still able to win last week, or how he's been able to bring along J.J. McCarthy. Like, I think that's a lot of what they're talking about. And also just Brian Flores having a very strong reputation for doing good work as a defensive coordinator as well. I think that's where it is. But I don't know. I would probably put Kevin O'Connell in the class of coaches that would have a job pretty quickly if he was out in Minnesota. Maybe not immediately, not to the level of Mike Tomlin, but he also hasn't had the longevity of Mike Tomlin either.
Yeah, I just think he's very impressive. He's got this confidence about himself and what they're doing that is very impressive. And granted, I mean, listen, it's Netflix, it's highly edited. You can't read too much into it, but I'll just say I've been impressed by him. Jason, I'll get you out of here on this segment on this. I should mention Steelers are 2.5-point underdogs in this game in Dublin, according to our friends at FanDuel. So check out their live odds if you want to place the wager on the game. If things persist with the offensive line this way, Jason, does the accountability have to extend to Pat Meyer? We saw Matt Canada be fired at midseason a couple of years ago before Arthur Smith was brought in. Does that need to be on the table if that's where they're getting outcoached on the development side? Maybe not so much on the X's and O's side, but if the results aren't there on the offensive line and they've invested so much in this season, do they have to maybe get a different voice in there before the end of the year?
I mean, I would have to think they entertain that. I think we're a long way from that happening, though, Adam. I mean, the Steelers' offensive line hasn't developed well enough for the resources that the Steelers have put into that. But I do think we need to remember that it's early here. I mean, it was only last draft that they drafted a bunch of guys, basically 3 starters. Isaac Seumalo has not been great, but is that a Pat Meyer problem? I'm not so sure. Broderick Jones not developing is obviously concerning. And so I think we just need to learn more. It's also a weird conversation topic, and I'm not saying this for you. I'm saying this for anybody. I had somebody email me yesterday and say, you guys should write an article about this offensive line disaster and Pat Meyer should be fired. I understand it's a talking point, but we're coming off a game where they didn't allow a sack after 2 games where they allowed a combined 7. I actually thought there were some steps forward. And I mean, yes, it's not where it ultimately should be, but I'm willing to kind of hear them out and give it some more time because of the pedigree they've invested here. So to answer the question, yes, I think Pat Meyer should be accountable along with everybody else if they underperform, which they have done, but I would just give it a little bit more than the time that they've given it to this point.
Yeah, I mean, this isn't college football where we've been seeing a lot of firings and
especially the Steelers, man, they ain't doing it.
Exactly. So, but they've shown a propensity to do it if things continue to not play out. So I guess we'll see as we get into November if that's a decision that needs to be made. But Jason, I'm excited. Honestly, the segment I'm more excited about here is talking about the Ireland stuff. So we're going to set that up. We're going to talk about that on the other side of this break. Please stay with us. We'll get Jason's read on the vibe across the pond. We are back on the North Shore Drive podcast. My name is Adam Bittner. He's Jason Mackey. We are joining Jason from Dublin, Ireland. You're in what park, Jason?
St. Stephen's Green. It is a beautiful park in the middle of downtown Dublin, and you see me kind of sitting weird. I thought this was going to be a little bit easier to find a spot to do this, Adam, but there's parts of this that are roped off, and it's an amazing place to come visit. You can walk through this sound trail. There's a bunch of birds chirping, which is beautiful unless you're trying to record a podcast. So that's cutting off a little bit of it, but grassy areas and trees and walkways, and it's very crowded. I'm not going to mess with my screen, but St. Stephen's Green is the name of it. And a lot of what I'm finding with Dublin, man, it is just absolutely gorgeous. And by the way, I wish we could do a behind the scenes thing here, but the rock that I have my computer and phone sitting on, and then how I'm kind of contorting myself to get into this shot, probably going to be sore the rest of the day, but that's all right.
Yeah, I was telling Jason before the show, I said, if you can make it through 20 minutes with your thighs you got better thighs than I do at this stage of my life. So credit to Jason for that. I want to dig into some questions before we do. I want to thank another couple of sponsors here. Are you having trouble finding the right people to hire? Tired of sorting through endless resumes? Well, the future of hiring looks much brighter because ZipRecruiter's latest tools and features help speed up finding the right people for your roles so you can save valuable time. And now you can try ZipRecruiter for free at ZipRecruiter.com/audio. With ZipRecruiter's new advances, you can easily find and connect with qualified candidates in minutes. See a candidate you're really interested in? You can unlock their contact info instantly. Use ZipRecruiter and save time hiring. 4 out of 5 employers who post on ZipRecruiter get a quality candidate within the first day. And if you go to ZipRecruiter.com/audio right now, you can try it for free. Again, that's ZipRecruiter.com/audio. ZipRecruiter, the smartest way to hire. We also want to thank Savinas, Kane, and Gallucci, Pittsburgh's mesothelioma and asbestos attorneys with over 85 years of experience. Call them now for a consultation or visit sdklaw.com. All right, Jason, with that out of the way, I got some questions because I actually went over to Dublin in 2014 when Penn State played UCF there. Famously, that was James Franklin's first game as Penn State's head coach. And Penn State won on a last-second field goal. If you go back and look at the highlights of that game, you'll see me standing under the goalposts recording.
Really?
So, yes, I was right behind the goalpost for that game. Yes,
okay.
Yes.
Nice.
So I got some experience with this, and I'm curious how things might have changed in the last handful of years. How many Steelers fans are you seeing who made the trip? Because I believe it was 20,000 Penn State fans a decade ago, and it seemed like they were everywhere. Is that kind of the experience you're having so far over there?
Now, I expect everywhere to happen like in the coming days. I still think it's kind of early. In the areas that I've seen, I would say they are very well populated. So where I've been so far, I started out the Steelers Pro Shop yesterday in downtown Dublin, and there were obviously a lot of Steelers fans there, right? Like that's an easy one. Now, as I walk around St. Stephen's Green, like I can't say that there's a ton of Steelers fans here, but last night I went to a Fitzsimmons Temple bar, and there were a ton there. And that's like the official Steelers bar here. It's all decked out, and here we go signs, and you're in Steelers country, and it's really cool. So, I mean, yeah, there's a lot of Steelers fans there. I'm interested, Adam. One of the things that I'm going to get into, and we're recording this before the column will publish, but I want to try to find out how much Irish people know about American football and what sort of stoked that passion. I was walking through the NFL shop yesterday, which is actually just across the street from here, but there's a bunch of people milling around, sort of looking at things kind of, cautiously investigating things. Like, it's cool. There's definitely a buzz around. There's definitely people excited and curious about it. I don't know how many of the hardcore Steelers fans have gotten here so far. I think by Sunday, this place will be rocking.
Story I like to tell is we were in a pub called the King's Head, which purports to go back several centuries as a bar. Yep. And there was Irish music being played, the accordion, and then there was a break in the music, and someone screams, "We are," in the bar, and literally the whole bar responds Penn State. It was all Penn State fans. So even though they weren't dressed, didn't have their stuff, I couldn't tell until everyone did that. So I think it'll be a really cool experience for those of you who are heading across the pond. I'm sure there will be some similar cheers in those different Dublin pubs and around the country. Lots of cool places to go. How many Irish locals have you talked to so far, and what are you seeing in the local media? Because I do remember when I was there, they were a little peeved because Penn State was displacing their Irish Rules football championship at Croke Park. In Irish Rules football, when it ends in a tie, the team play the following week. There's no overtime. They just keep playing until there's a champion. And so it should have been at Croke Park, which is where the Steelers will be playing on Sunday. But because Penn State was there, they had to play at another smaller stadium, somewhere else in the country. And so there was a lot of editorials kind of complaining about that. The Irish at that time also weren't super into the American spectacle. They thought it was ridiculous that there was bands for the state game. So what's your read on the local embrace of this event, given that this is the NFL? There's names these people probably know in terms of Aaron Rodgers, DK Metcalf, Justin Jefferson, maybe, versus the college game that it's big for us in America, but that maybe doesn't translate as well internationally.
I think that this could be me kind of speculating, but that's okay. It's our podcast. We're allowed. I would say that this area has embraced the NFL more than the college game. I think American football has a certain sort of appeal, and not that, football as it's known everywhere else other than America. Like, it's not like anybody is throwing aside soccer. I don't want to say that and get somebody upset, but like, I think there's a certain curiosity to American football. And I go back to this, Adam. The NFL wouldn't be over here and making the efforts that it has if there wasn't something appealing, if they didn't sense an audience, if there wasn't an opportunity here. So, I mean, Dublin is naturally a great tie for the Steelers. They should be the most popular team in this area, given the family's roots and given, how many Irish people we have in Pittsburgh as well. I think there's a pretty strong appetite over here for it. I can't say in the local media. No, I've been here about 27 hours right now, and that included an actual night's sleep last night. But, I haven't gotten to pour through a lot of local media. But as far as walking around, curiosity, the people that I've talked to, I talked to one guy. He's been in Ireland for probably about 40 years, I want to say. He actually moved here from Germany. But he was telling me that he was into American football since like the 80s. Got into it because of Joe Montana and the Niners, then adopted Steelers, loves the Rooneys, and he's here and he's obsessed and he can't wait. But, it's getting really popular. But he was here on the ground floor and he was really excited. That was a fun conversation. I got to find a way to get that into print. But anyway, I think there's a curiosity, a fascination, all that stuff, maybe treated a little differently than the college game.
Tell me about the experience at the Steelers Pro Shop, because I think that's something different than when I was over there. You got a full store dedicated to the Steelers in this city. There's a video you shot that is on the YouTube channel. So if you haven't checked it out, go back, click on the channel name, then click videos, and you'll see Jason with a gentleman who was holding up a terrible towel with the Irish flag. Where it
Martin
says
Barnett, baby. My man, yeah. Martin.
Tell me about that experience and how it felt to kind of basically just get off the plane and walk in there and get that vibe going.
It was awesome, man. So, like, that's what I did. I landed yesterday morning. I got in an Uber or it's free taxi or some weird app name, but whatever, a ride share to our Airbnb. And I dropped my luggage and I made a cup of coffee just to get a little boost before I went into town. And that became important for a reason I'll explain in a second. But, hop on a bus, go into town, and go right to the Steelers Pro Shop. And it's a great story. You can read that at post-gazette.com. This guy, Martin Barnett, he's the store manager here, and he's actually a rabid Steelers fan. He's from the UK and adopted the Steelers at a very young age. He's one of the people that I talked about, very intrigued by American sports. But so he's like managing this. He called it Christmas Day every day. And he works for a national merchandising company. They handle things like when Taylor Swift puts on a concert, like they handle the merchandising for that. That's one of their contracts. But anyway, so the NFL opens a Steelers store in Dublin and he's the one managing it. He's loving it. It's a really cool store, by the way. There's 2 levels, a whole stack of terrible towels, bunch of jerseys. Check it out if you're here. But so I get in there. And he was joking. He's like, yeah, Art Rooney II was just here about 15 minutes ago. I'm like, if I wouldn't have had that coffee, I would have been able to get here and talk to Art, and I would have had a better story, darn it. But anyway, it was cool that Art was there. Martin was telling me a story about a couple that came right from the airport. They didn't even drop their bags. They didn't even know where they were going to go, but like they had to hit this store. They had to get their Steelers gear. So it's a fun store, man. People, when I was in there, there were probably 30, 40 people. It's not that big a space. It's like, you see row houses. It's like a row of shops and it's just one of them. So it's not a huge store, but they have a lot of stuff in it. A lot of cool Ireland gear, a lot of cool gear specifically for the game. So fun time and a fun story.
Jason, how's the eating been? Have you had any interesting Irish fare? And I guess what are you most excited about over the course of the week? I know there's going to be some Rooney family ancestry that you're going to be digging through later in the week. What are you looking forward to here?
So the food's been good. I had a ham and cheese sandwich and a vegetable soup yesterday. Pretty basic utilitarian lunch. Had some wings last night at Fitzsimmons, which were surprisingly very good. I wanted to see how Ireland did with wings. Nothing too exotic so far. I'll try to change that tonight for dinner. And yeah, Thursday is what I'm looking forward to most, Adam. I think it's going to be a lot of fun. So I am traveling with the Steelers all day tomorrow. We're going up to Northern Ireland, writing about they're visiting an elementary school, and that the County Down is where the Rooneys are from. and tomorrow being Thursday. So I'll be doing this as you're watching and listening to this podcast. But yeah, I mean, I understand how much this means to Art Rooney II. I understand how much it means to his dad. His son's going to be along for the trip. And I'm really excited to chronicle that. I'm excited to see Northern Ireland. I'm excited to kind of get away from Dublin. Not that I don't like Dublin, but just I don't really feel like driving. And if somebody else is going to do the driving, I'll take that bet. Anybody who's seen roads here, it's a little scary. Right side of the car, left lane. But no, I'm excited to write about that stuff and chronicle what they're doing in Northern Ireland and how much this means to the Rooney family.
My favorite story from Northern Ireland for that trip, Jason, is there's a pub that's been continuously operating since I think 1630, and they have a sign over the door that says, "God knows how we lasted this long in this country," which is often how I feel about the newspaper business.
Maybe I can take a picture if I'm around there. They should sell shirts, man. I mean, that's our new logo. But this is how we last this long, Adam. We're doing podcasts. We're doing new media, all kinds of stuff, writing for the web, pumping out content.
I think this might
but a different way.
I think this might be the first international podcast in the history of the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette. So I think we're making a little bit of history here. I mean, maybe somebody can correct me if I'm wrong, but this has been a lot of fun. I'm looking forward to seeing your dispatches through the rest of the week. Enjoy Northern Ireland. They also have the Titanic Museum up there, Jason. That's very interesting because that's where it was built in Belfast, even though it's famous for other locations. So lots to check out. If you're over in Ireland, enjoy the trip. If you're here in Pittsburgh or staying in the United States for the game, make sure you subscribe to the channel. We're going to have a ton coming to you from the Emerald Isle. Please like this video if you enjoyed it. Help us out in the YouTube algorithm. And of course, check out our written coverage of this trip over on post-gazette.com. Lots of good stuff coming from Jason there as well. Jason, thanks for stopping by, and we'll talk to you soon.
All right. Thanks, Adam.
Thank you for checking out this content from Post-Gazette Sports. If you watch this video on YouTube, please like the video and subscribe to our channel. For all of the sports coverage the Post-Gazette has to offer, visit post-gazette.com.